Hello, welcome to Invictus Porsche for a review of my favorite Porsche 911. It's a 997.1 Carrera 2. This is the base 911 with a 3.6 litre engine. But before we get into the main crux of this review, please don't forget to click that subscribe button and support us and our work that we do. Before we talk any further, let's go out for a drive. Well, firstly, it's very important to put your seatbelt on. And secondly, it is extremely important to find the key to put in the ignition. No, I'm kidding. All comfortable, set in reverse. And off we go. The 997, in my opinion, offers the perfect balance between what the car can offer and how much contribution is required from the driver. I mean, this still has the hydraulic steering, the 90s braking system, and in some ways it's a positive thing. It's a 911 with character, and it's a 911 that can produce this beautiful sound from the naturally aspirated flat 6 boxer engine. This has the 6-speed manual transmission. From factory it has a sports shifter, and the steering wheel here is the sports steering wheel, so it gives you this added leather upholstery, and you know, it's basically molded in certain places to give you a proper grip around the steering wheel. The sweet spot on the 997 really is between 5,000 to 6,000 RPM. And that is, in my opinion, sort of between the second to the third gear. That is where you will get the best sound from a 997, from that engine, from that exhaust. And the braking system, once you've got everything warmed up, the tires, the brakes, and the car is up to temperature, works extremely well. And from a practicality point of view, it has an extremely good turning circle, as you can see, as I've just illustrated. It's got this 2+2 layout thanks to the engine being behind the rear axle, and a very large front boot which I can fit into. Now, in terms of performance figures, this pretty much offers all the performance anyone would want in a car, as I've covered at the beginning of the video. It produces 320 brake horsepower, 370 Newton meters of torque, and the 0 to 60 is possible in 5 seconds. Fuel consumption, I mean, you could be doing anywhere between 20 miles per gallon to 30 miles per gallon in this. And hopefully this is everything, you know, you out there might want in a sports car. I mean, this is all I have ever wanted, and I have it here, and I'm driving it, and I get the most joy and the best engagement out of it. I braked from about 65 miles per hour to a complete standstill extremely comfortably. And again, thanks to its phenomenal turning circle. I don't feel like I'm stranded or I'm having to do some sort of a 5-point turn just to do a 1-point turn in essence. One thing that is extremely critical in a 997 of this generation is to make sure that it is Borescoped and that an over rev report is done on it before you buy it, and also preferably a 111-point health check, whereby any necessary serviceable items that are required on a car this age that could potentially fail at any point are replaced. I mean, this had the tandem pump replaced, the water pump, including the driver's belt, as well as the front condensers, a minor service done, and pretty much whatever that was necessary and whatever that was required. And something that is extremely important to me in any 911 is the seating position, where I'm sitting in comparison to the steering, whether that's on a shorter journey, on a driver-focused journey, or on a longer journey, or on a motorway, and also how low I'm sitting to the ground, and because that contributes to the engagement that you get out of the car, which I will talk about also in a minute. What I love about the base 997.1 is two things. One, the base literally offers all the performance numbers one really need in a 911. I mean, it produces 320 brake horsepower, 370 Newton meters of torque. The 0 to 60 is possible in 5 seconds. I mean, this car is fast as is. As a sports car, I don't think one really needs more than this, and I think it gets a bit more ridiculous in the sports car world from around this point. I mean, let's just compare it to a Vantage. I mean, it just offers ridiculous performance numbers. I mean, a Vantage is either 4.3 or 4.7 litres. This is a 3.6 litre, but still you get really sensible fuel consumption from it. I mean, you can average anywhere from 20 to 30 miles per gallon. It just depends on how you drive it. But let's stick back to Porsches and what makes me fall in love with the 997. And that's because up until the 997.1, all Porsche engines were the indirect fuel injected engines. I mean, there was a mechanical feel to it, there was a pulse to it. I mean, these cars had these small little touches and attributes of a classic 911. I mean, these were the Bosch indirect fuel injecteds that sort of were part of Porsche's history from when they came out. And when they went to the 997 Gen 2, they became direct fuel injected engines, and unfortunately lost its classic mechanical elements, and they became more Hoover-like. So unfortunately for me, I've had it with Porsches from the 997 Gen 2, so it kind of leaves me with this, and in some ways this is a perfect car. And that is talking about the early history and the design of when Porsche started to work on producing the 997, and that began in the fourth quarter of 1998. And sort of from 1998 to 2000, they started to produce full-scale size models and worked on the body shape and the lines and the outline of what it would look like. And then a final design by designer Grant Larson was approved of the 997, and then they produced the early prototypes, the working prototypes that they tested to the new parameters set out in 2001, up until its production and eventual release in 2004. And Porsche have really stuck true to its philosophy of designing by evolution rather than revolution. And the most notable aesthetic change on the 997 really has been going back to the oval shaped headlights as found on the early 911s, whereas its predecessor, the 996, had the well-known controversial headlights known as the Friday headlights, which in my opinion isn't the worst design in the world, but I guess from a purist point of view, people have always seen Porsches with oval shaped headlights, so for them it was in some ways quite controversial and going away from the tradition of what these cars should look like. Also, in terms of scale, it's still overall the same length in comparison to its predecessor, but the rear bodywork has increased by 88 millimeters or 3.5 inches, and the body profile has still stayed true to Porsche's philosophy of creating a car that has a low body profile with a drag coefficient in the Carrera 2 as 0.28, and on a Carrera S, on a Carrera S 0.29. So overall, from an aesthetic point of view, I think this is the perfect specimen that Porsche have designed, produced, and in my opinion, I think this is going to be an enduring and an everlasting design, which I think will capture people's imagination for many years to come. And overall, what I would like to say here is that there's a huge difference also between the Porsche 911s designed and built by Porsche and then by the VAG Group in 2011, and that is because we have found the 997 shape and before to be smaller, nimbler, and in some ways quite raw and not sophisticated. I mean, it had a bit of a character, it had this attributes that were in some ways mechanical and old school, and the VAG Group in some ways has taken that away from us. So I do want to say thank you for supporting us, subscribing to our channel and liking our content, and hopefully we'll be doing many more of these. For the time being, thank you.